I'd like to introduce Michael Sissons, our founder and CEO, who's going to give us a quick intro into Syncapse and then dive right into our content for today.
This is the first ever webinar that I have done, so hopefully I'm not breaking too many webinar rules, but do look forward to your questions, and thank you all for being out and taking the time out of your busy day. Those of you who haven't had a chance to meet us, you know, we'd like to try to keep things relatively brief and to the point, so I'll do my best to do that today and hopefully get to your questions as quickly as possible. So a little bit about Syncapse. We are based here in New York with offices across Canada and the US, Europe, and outside of Delhi. We are a leading provider of cloud marketing solutions for primarily B2C businesses who are looking to use technology and services to empower their marketing efforts and help gain new customers, as well as help build loyalty programs and complete the overall marketing mix. Work with a number of the names you may recognize here on this page, from Reckitt Benckiser, L'Oreal, Diageo, Coke, Anheuser-Busch, etc. A little bit about how we tend to work, and this will play into how we think about ads and how we think about where the ads market is evolving. We'll really start to see a bunch of different areas of this market coming together. So historically, we've seen companies work with one partner or one place, or have, hey, this is how we do social ads, this is how we do data, here's how we think about publishing to Facebook, here's how we think about analytics. We want to talk today, and we'll go through in a bit more detail, is these areas are really starting to converge and come together. And what we're seeing is the ability to make this happen and to use this data to really help improve our marketing and our relationships with our customers in ways that we've gone on before. So our business is centered around search and social advertising. This was driven through the acquisition of our friends at Clickable back in the summertime. That also brought Max into the fold, and we're really excited to have him on the team. He's got a fantastic mustache. For those of you who haven't met him, we'll upload a photo of it a little bit later on. We also lead in global collaboration and workflow management. So this is enabling sales forces, enabling the organization to better manage customer relationships through content repositories and publishing. We manage the data stores for the brands that we work with. So this is a central data repository where all of the audience and consumer data is stored, and from here we're ultimately able to drive marketing intelligence or build analytics around. Most of our customers are large B2C brands, as I mentioned, who tend to require some consulting and services as part of the mix. We also have a large global services and consulting group who work to understand how all of this can be used to accompany the business advantage, as well as make sure that the implementation and everything goes seamlessly through the process. Okay, so two big questions that we want to answer today. The first one is, how can we align social with business goals? And we'll talk through what that looks like. And the second one is, how can I deliver scale? And these are really two important questions. One, because we've traditionally in the market seen that social goals and business goals are often different. And we know at scale, these things need to become the same answer, and ultimately how companies understand, whether it's cost savings or driving revenue, are ultimately what our jobs are as marketers. So we're going to talk through these two big questions and look forward to answering your questions to this at the end, but also know that there are cases where these tend to be different answers depending on which vertical you represented. So 5 things that we're going to do today to hopefully answer these two questions. One, we'll talk about Facebook strategies, old and new. Obviously, there's been a lot of changes in the marketplace in terms of consolidation, changes with Facebook in terms of where they're going. The 3 pillars of social, prioritizing strategies in 4 phases, how to plan for success, and the key takeaways that we hope you take today. And I'll ultimately look forward to answering any questions so you can take away as much as you'd like. So we'll start with Facebook strategies, old and new. Really what we look for is, why are brands ultimately failing, or what are the challenges they're looking to find? And goals and strategies historically were, we need to get set up in social. This was, how do we get a Facebook page? So we get set up on Twitter, what's our LinkedIn? And the goals and strategies becoming social for social's sake, acquiring fans for fans' sake, growing presence, and now it's engaging the audience. But how does that ultimately drive profit, or how are we looking to align those goals to something that is ultimately going to help create a meaningful business impact? So the challenge that we have in this approach has been, goals don't always align with other marketing efforts, and often social has sat in a silo. Social has often been difficult to scale, and we talk difficult to scale. It's often been, looking at how these practices become impactful at driving business results in a way that is meaningful, that happens and drives enough results to mean something. A missing link between social marketing and ROI or marketing ROI, difficulty in planning and measuring, and overlooking Facebook's greatest strengths. So the strategies that we've historically seen and the conversations we've historically seen have really shifted as we head towards 2013. And we'll talk about how to help make some of these challenges a reality as we move forward with this presentation. So the way that we think about Facebook, and the reason that we're continue to be so excited about Facebook and what we're writing about and doing, isn't because we just love saying the word Facebook, Facebook, Facebook over and over and over again. It's because over 1 billion users can now be targeted with ads. And one of the things that we've really drawn a lot of analogies to with Facebook is increasingly towards CRM, and why Facebook becomes an important part of managing a CRM strategy or a customer relationship strategy. Now with Facebook, that's over 1 billion users, and one of the reasons why this ultimately becomes an important part in thinking about that CRM strategy is Facebook, historically, you built a community and then tried to manage them through community management. You can only reach a small subset of your audience. So if you want to be doing CRM successfully today on Facebook, paid media is a critical part to it. And the social endorsement that you gather through that paid media, whether it's recommendations and referrals, we know that this social endorsement leads to a higher likelihood to buy. So 2 key points. 1, Facebook is the largest CRM platform in the world. 2, paid media is an important part in managing those customer relationships, are ultimately delivering the optimal levels of reach, frequency, and impact to those customers. There's ultimately 3 pillars to social, and these are paid, owned, and earned media. And we've spent a lot of time historically as an industry talking about these and why they're important and how these things come together. Paid media was always its own little silo, and it was an agency that was specifically responsible for this. Earned media was its own little silo. There was an agency responsible for this. And owned media was its own silo, and there was typically an agency responsible for this. What we're seeing, and I think we really view Facebook at the heart of a lot of this convergence, is bringing paid, owned, and earned together. And obviously, everyone has read 1,000 articles about this in the last year or two. I don't think that there's a big revelation here. But what does it ultimately start to mean when these things come together? So if the database that's connected, that manages paid, earned, and owned, or manages how we connect to consumers and helps us better understand our marketing efforts, what does this mean? It means that we can amplify successful content. And I think one of the things when we think about amplifying successful content is successful content historically in social has been our top performing post or our best engaging post. If you start to think about where this goes in the future, that successful content is going to be something that is driving brand awareness or recall towards an audience at the right message at the right time. So amplifying successful content might be amplifying a message to someone before they walk into Walmart, or amplifying the right message to moms on Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays because we know that they tend to go to Walmart. Amplifying the right message to the right consumer at the right time when they're in the right area of the purchase cycle is ultimately when we think about amplifying successful content versus the traditional approach of just whatever post happens to be performing best, because we know that those things ultimately become able to cheat the system with some various way, shape, or form. Second is obviously post engagement and loyalty engagement and earned engagement. So these are all the own vehicles that are driving reach across platforms like Facebook and obviously Twitter, LinkedIn, and Google as well. This has been its own ecosystem now, and the ability to connect that into advertising optimization I've talked about. So once we understand what content works in owned, we're now in a position to optimize it and drive it through advertising optimization. The challenge that I alluded to earlier in this advertising optimization is that traditionally driving the right message to the right consumer at the right time and the right relationship to purchase cycle is going to be a lot more effective than what we traditionally think of just amplifying a great post. We also look at influencer engagement and consumer segmentation, but how do we start to bring all of these things together? The first thing we need to be able to do is set specific goals as it relates to reach and frequency that will align to social marketing channels. This is going to be used for how we should think about CRM within social advertising. We'll speak more about that in just a second. The second is driving targeted reach and frequency, so looking at aiming for 2 degrees of separation between our total addressable audience, or what types of message do we want to drive to which types of consumers at what frequency. And a great example of that is if you sell shampoo and someone's using your shampoo every day, driving high volume of frequency saying you should use our shampoo, or that you should be buying more of our product is unlikely, because people aren't going to wash their hair more than once a day, or sometimes twice or 3 times a week. So looking at how you're potentially reaching one of their friends and creating that type of social recommendation or referral. So driving appropriate reach and frequency becomes important. And third is driving social endorsement. So how are we bringing the efficiency of what's happening in the brand message and getting more of our more from our advertising based on the fact that, I know Max sitting beside me uses a particular brand of shampoo, and I ultimately want to be more like Max because he looks so stylish today in his striped shirt with his mustache, and I know that using shampoo makes me more like Max. And then fourth, how do we use these events to drive campaigns? So specific promotions that should broadcast, usually a separate strategy, but have to be connected to the broader system. So what we brought together in the ad planner, and I want to make one very specific play here when we start to think about advertising planning, and this is really specific advertising planning as it works towards B2C marketing. If you're an e-commerce company and you're able to track completely to point of sale, and you've got really specific algorithms that are tracking that, this is going to be a little bit less relevant to you. However, gives you good influence when we start to think about brand marketing. So when we built this ad planner, the reason that we built it was to change the way that companies were thinking about planning their Facebook marketing. And historically, it's been goals really simple of, I want to get more Facebook fans. And they would go out, they'd brief an agency, the agency would buy fans as cheaply as possible, and there would be fans that would come back with no connection to how much these people were spending with the product, no connection with how loyal they were to the product, and no connection to really the bottom line of the industry. So ultimately, we believe that driving appropriate amounts of reach and frequency to the right segments does lead to fan growth, but really what the goal is of marketing is to drive that reach and frequency to the right segments at the right time. So we go into our ad planner, which hopefully everybody has had a chance to play with. If you haven't, it is available always online at adplanner.syncapse.com. We designed it to be a basic philosophical concept that helps change the way that marketers are thinking about this. We allow these variables to be surfaced in an easy to use way. This is obviously only the first stage in a broader conversation. For us to really understand your marketing goals and be able to build you a specific plan, or your agencies to do this, there'd be another level of details that would go beneath it. This is only designed to start. So the first thing we ask for is the total addressable target market. This is no new question. Every marketer should know the answer to their target market. The reason why this is important is this is helping us define what percentage of the Facebook CRM database that you're interested in reaching. And depending on budget or mass market product or focus, it's going to change dramatically. So for our company, obviously our target addressable market tends to be specific markets across Canada, the U.S., and Europe. People who work at specific companies and who are over 18, we have a very small target market in comparison with a mass market product that has everyone who lives in the U.S. between the ages of 24 and 54. So the bigger your market, you can expect that there's going to be a bigger cost for you to use the Facebook platform and to use it the most effective way. And if you can't afford the budget, you can restrict your market. There's a number of things you can restrict, but target market is key to defining the size of that social CRM or that Facebook database that you want to reach. The second is market conditions, and the reason why we use market conditions is that these are designed as friction points, and these are friction points to consider when thinking about planning. One, what percentage of your fans are customers today? And the reason that we ask that question has to do with the friction point around how aspirational is your brand. What we've traditionally found is brands that are more highly aspirational tend to get fans easier than those who are not. So when we look at some of the metrics that we look towards in terms of number of fans that are garnered, et cetera, that's a friction setting that we use to help you understand that, as well as helping get the marketers understanding and thinking about their fans being customers and how that affects our marketing strategy. The next thing we ask is market share. The reason we ask that is it's directly connected to friction. If you're a mass market product that everybody knows about, it's going to be easier for you to get fans and followers with the right strategy than being someone they don't. The next question we ask is, what is the average net margin per sale? And the reason that we ask this around ad planning is it's not realistic for us to spend $8 marketing to a consumer if the lifetime expectation of that customer is $1. So what we typically find is that you find high volume frequency purchase, like soft drinks and candy bars and clothing that's happening on a high buying frequency at a lower margin is a different amount of spend than a higher consideration product that isn't happening every day, that's happening on an annual or biannual basis with a much higher margin. So making sure that the marketing costs don't leave the realm and reality of the business, that's the fundamental controls we've started to put in place with average net margin per sale as well as buying frequency. Again, when we're doing this type of planning for our own specific customers, we tend to use our own internal data on market share, on net margins, on buying frequency, on buying life cycles. We'll typically build a strategy based on the real data. This is really just helping build thinking around it. The next thing we look towards is always-on variables and campaign variables. When we drive this through the ad planning process, we're traditionally looking at what is the ultimate amount of frequency that you want to be talking to the varying segments at the right message or the right time. So as an example, if you are a company selling bottled water, and I'm being very specific today to not use any brand names. If you're a company using bottled water and you have 10 or 15 million fans, what is the ultimate amount of time or message frequency that you want to be driving to your fans or to your friends of fans? And the question of that really has to do with purchase cycle. If you've got a number of segments around your particular product, and we'll keep using bottled water, you obviously have a number of points of when decisions are made. Decisions are made, for example, every lunchtime when a working professional makes a decision between a water product or a soft drink product. A decision is made by a mom every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday when they are going to a Walmart or a Target or another store to make a decision, or a Costco and bringing product home. So we look at the different levels of Max is a big Costco fan, that's why I threw that in. Looking at the amount of messaging that we're driving to the segments, the first thing to ask yourself is, how many segments am I obviously talking to? And based on my purchase cycle of my customers, how important is it that I have high frequency or high awareness? And a general rule of thumb is, and from our data suggests, the higher frequency of purchase, the higher frequency. And the reason for that is that you have more buying experiences, more impacts to drive incremental volume, and more impacts and more timing opportunities in terms of when you ultimately can touch that consumer. If you're a higher consideration, lower frequency purchase like a car, we know that a great time to drive frequency is when someone's lease expires or when you have a new product that launches. So every vertical here has different approaches. So what we want to help you do in the always-on variables is think through the ultimate amount of frequency that you want to be driving to customers or different segments as part of your always-on or your Facebook CRM marketing strategy. The next variable we look at is really a top-up, and this is your campaign variable. So if you've got 2 or 3 big campaigns during the year where you want to increase your normal everyday frequency by adding additional frequency around a campaign window, you can do this. And my way of the world of thinking is actually inverted. I tend to focus on always-on first, and because I believe in the effectiveness of CRM, especially paid and social CRM. And if dollars remain, look at campaigns. The market today tends to look at campaigns and then look at always-on. So what campaigns allow you to do is plan. You've got this many campaigns, this amount of frequency, this volume. What does that ultimately cost? So what you end up with is a basic methodology that says, okay, to talk to my fans or my customers with the frequency I want throughout the year, it's going to cost me X. To talk to the people that they can influence, and we know that the people they influence are going to be represented by a number of segments. They're going to have a number of different content strategies against them. But based on wanting to ideally reach that CRM platform throughout the year, it's going to cost me Y. And if I want to do a broader campaign, it's going to cost me Z. And what we are able to do through our planning process, and the ad planner is just really the tipping point of that, is understand what segments, what messages, what frequencies right for what segments, and be able to bring that into fruition. What we're really trying to do with that plan is just help you better understand how to think about planning and prioritizing these specific segments as you're looking to plan your Facebook advertising investment for 2013. This breaks down in terms of understanding, how much you're spending for reach per person. Again, this is important because If you know 1 in 10,000 customers converts and you're spending $1,000 per customer, it's not going to work. If you're spending 8 cents per customer or 10 cents, these are financial variables we can use to understand the amount of spend that you're spending on a specific prospect or customer to drive what initiative, and then work back with your existing budgetary procedures to plan and drive sales projections for what we anticipate this reach and frequency being able to do. So key takeaways. 1, aligning social media goals to your business goals. Your business goals are driving, obviously, revenue and driving increased brand loyalty and affinity awareness. And we believe that an effective way to do that is by effectively driving the right reach and frequency to the right segment. And Facebook is the leading CRM platform in doing that, and paid media is part of that mix. 2, acquiring fans to enable social endorsement across your target market. Fans are still important. Historically, people have said, hey, if you get fans, you can drive free reach. You can. And Facebook has been active in saying you can drive about 16% free reach to your consumers on a basis. Fans are going to be important as the market evolves towards social search and a number of areas that move forward. Focus on getting fans, but that shouldn't be your primary goal. Your primary goal should be your business goals. Fans are going to be important, and if you do a great job of driving the right message to the right consumers at the right time, fans are going to happen around themselves. And 3, measure social performance. Understand the amount of reach and frequency you're driving to specific segments. Understand which messages are resonating with that segment. Optimize it and make sure that paid media is fully embedded and part of that experience. So with that 30-minute monologue, typically it's always great to have questions and have a dialogue. It's a bit harder here today, given this is a webinar, and I'm learning this as we go. We love to take your questions. We've had a few come in, and I'll introduce Matt back to the line here to help us go through that.
Great. Thanks, Michael. And we've got the audio working again, which is great. And thanks for your patience during that. Obviously, throughout this webinar, you've all learned about my mustache, which is getting long. This is Movember. We are cancer fundraising for male cancer research, so I'll definitely have to send around a picture of the growing stash following this webcast. So we have a couple questions in, and before we kick them off, I just want to encourage you, if you have questions, you can tweet them to Syncapse at Syncapse with the hashtag FBAds2013. You can also pose them in the box or the chat as well in your webinar console. So the first question, Michael, and we'll continue to monitor any additional ones that come in. The first question is, how big should a Facebook ads budget be versus other media channels? How should you go about thinking about that?
Thank you, Max. I think that there isn't necessarily one specific answer to that question, so it's very hard for me to say, Facebook should represent X percentage of your audience. The answer to that really depends on what vertical you're in or what your broader marketing goals are and what percentage penetration you have. I tend to work it backwards and say, based on the goals that I want to drive against a specific segment, what level of frequency am I going to need to ultimately move the needle or make sure I'm getting enough, recall? So if I look at, we'll use water as an example. If I know that I'll be talking to moms and I've got a strategy around Walmart and how we're activating there, I want to be talking to working professionals every day between 11 and 2, affecting how we're working there. I ultimately believe that the difference in the strategy has less to do with an overall percentage and more to do with understanding the objectives, understand the desired reach and frequency that's going to be required to drive those objectives and change that, and then ultimately working that backwards. But I believe that with Facebook being the largest CRM platform, I do believe that it is going to be a sizable percentage of your mix. And what we're seeing this year, 2013, or heading into 2013, is most of our customers have kind of dramatically increased what they're spending in Facebook. I think that percentage changes dramatically. The ones who are doing the best job and who are doing the best at internalizing that in the organization to get success for their spend tends to be ones who are speaking like the way we are, especially in B2C, and providing clarity to why they're advertising, why they're driving messaging the segments, and what levels of reach and frequency they're driving to drive recall in those areas.
Thank you, Michael. So next question here is, how do you integrate good media strategy in coordination with community managers and other social stakeholders?
That's a really good question, and the easiest answer I can give you is it's simple. When you see a great post, press the promote button. I don't necessarily think that's the right answer, and I think that the reality of the world that we're heading into today is that content for brands last year seemed complicated, and it was creating and managing a Facebook community or a Twitter community seemed like a complex challenge, and there was, what's the right number of posts? Well, it's 2 posts per week. I think if we look towards what we're talking about and using Facebook as our CRM platform, it's having them deeply embedded and ingrained in the segment strategy and in the message strategy and understanding, we want these segments to believe this about our brand at the end of the year, and we want to drive messaging, recall, and awareness towards this. But it's not going to be a world where it's 2 posts a week. It's going to be a world where you may have 200-300 messages being advertised through sponsored stories and a bunch of different avenues in real time. And there's a connection, but there is the challenge there because PR, working with the community manager, working with the marketing brand manager, working with the advertising agency, working with the creative agency, causes a real challenge. And what we're seeing is brands who are kind of embracing social CRM are kind of creating one group with some amount of power and budget to manage this stuff centrally. But the community manager is going to be a core part of it, but it's going to be an evolution towards managing communications and segments that community management has historically not had a lot of experience in, and I think is a huge opportunity for that industry moving forward.
Great, thanks, Michael. So the next question, you talked a bit about Facebook as the largest social CRM. How should companies go about integrating the world's largest CRM with their existing legacy CRM databases?
It's a really good question, and every customer has a different CRM database. We play specifically in the B2C space mostly, so we tend to see, ranging from some of the big database providers to a bunch of companies that were very successful in B2C CRM, which is very different than B2B CRM. The ultimate view, I think, if you look at this integration, comes down to, one, we need a database structure that can handle the data, and that's why we built out, and I talk about the need for data warehousing and data management around audience data and consumer data. Having a flexible database that can hold this stuff and hold the tactics becomes key, and how we gather that data from different sources ultimately becomes a data integration challenge and a services challenge. And we've got a lot of experience in how we manage that database, and what we're finding is that the answer tends to vary based on company, because how we integrate that data with customer care, which is a different system, how we integrate that data with marketing and ad buying, and ultimately the audience data stack that sits in the middle of it becomes an enabler. And then there's a services job of the development of specific plugins for the customer, as well as the management of that database and better using that database for marketing performance, because measurement or a database that isn't improving marketing performance doesn't really add value. It's how that information ultimately gets actioned in the organization with promise that it brings.
Thanks, Michael. Okay, next question. Facebook has instituted some edge rank changes recently, and there's been some controversy, discussion around that. What do ongoing edge rank changes mean for Facebook marketing?
I think it's really an evolution of the times, and it's Facebook, is increasingly looking like a very, targeted television station where you're, have a big step having a two-way dialogue around it. Facebook has a need to monetize. I don't think there's any question around that. What you're seeing is, the evolution of, one, they're giving marketers more control over the reach and frequency of driving to a segment, and the second thing is that they're expecting to be compensated from that. So I think that the evolution of what that means is that historically, I think marketers have had a balance of working and non-working dollars, or dollars that were, social was primarily viewed as non-working dollars and an allocation of community management that managed the relationships. What we're finding is that having strong working dollars or paid dollars are a critical part of the strategy. Facebook is obviously going to constantly making changes to their edge rank, but I think that it is very important that the budgeting is connected to paid media as well, because for you to justify community management and the approach towards managing the messaging and to reach a broad enough audience. It does. If you're not reaching your most desired audience, your target audience with paid media, you're not getting the most out of your community management. And I think a lot of companies have historically been very skewed towards the non-working, and now what we're finding is that the paid is becoming important, not just for needing to reach more people, but also to really take advantage of the good work that community managers are doing and ensuring enough people actually see it to be meaningful. So most of our customers are budgeting reach goals for the year that are reflective of amplifying the great work their community managers are doing, and they really want to make sure that the dollars that they're investing in community management are being seen by enough people to justify it, and watching that ratio carefully.
Thanks, Michael. I think reinforcing that point you just made, the Ehrenberg Bass Marketing Science Institute just released a report showing that there is, in fact, lower reach among a lot of the world's top advertisers. But one of the consistent metrics has been the actual engagement. So if you're able to apply the advertising against that social endorsed engagement, it all plays to the model that you've just been describing. So the next question here, Michael, is so this webcast was called Always On, and largely what we've talked about is a lot of always on principles with Facebook ads, which sort of begs the question is, where should Facebook ads live within the marketing mix? Who is best suited to manage them most effectively?
That's a potentially politically charged question, Max, but I think it really depends on the organization. I think the best structure is making sure that the reach goals and frequency goals and the dollars are clearly allocated for the year, and then finding the right team to do that. So we have a number of customers that we manage it for completely on the outside, and work with them and their agencies to manage it holistically across a big set of brands. We have some customers who have media agencies who do a really great job managing it, and we have some who have community managers who do a really great job managing it. I think that the answer is less about it has to live here. The real challenge is the dollars are clearly outlined, the goals are clearly outlined, and the people have a clear responsibility of what they're trying to do and what the dollars are for. If those things are present, I see customers being successful. When those things are all disconnected, that's when we start to see less success on that interaction point.
Great. Michael, do you forecast any crossover between Facebook messaging and actual email marketing, kind of back to the CRM integration?
I think it's totally possible. I think that Facebook emails, and for those of you who have may have done an iOS upgrade, realize how embedded Facebook emails can become as part of a broader challenge. And I've got a number of friends who mistakenly send emails to my Facebook inbox because they're sitting on an iOS device. I think that there's a connection point. I think Facebook would be very hard pressed to start putting a lot of marketing messages into your inbox. We were there before. So if you look way back to 2007, 8, probably 8, originally they were delivering marketing messages in the same inbox as your inbox messages. That wasn't that successful. So I would say that's probably a later stage implementation, and I think that they may use that in an interesting way. But I don't think it's going to be delivering marketing messages into someone's inbox. I think alerts are some potential. I'm politically unable to vote yesterday, for example, because of I'm Canadian. However, I was getting notifications from a number of political candidates indicating that I should be heading to the polls. So I think notifications and how they drive that level of notification, I think is going to be a core part. I don't think it'll be part of email.
Thanks, Michael. Next question is, how will new channels such as mobile and video, how will we see those two play in the Facebook ads in the future?
And I think mobile and video, as I look at it, are kind of extensions of the reach and frequency around a consumer. So being able to deliver a more relevant message to a consumer at the right time, I think is really appealing. I think as you start to get the ability to use that information to put the right message in someone's newsfeed at the right time when they're in the right location, there's a huge amount of opportunity around mobile. And it's obviously going to be an extension of what we look at as that core consumer database that sits on Facebook. As we look towards mobile video, I think it's just an extension. It's just another product. My way of thinking is much less interested in ad products. I'm much more interested in what level of reach and frequency impact we're driving to what consumer, and the collection of ad products is going to vary dramatically. But I don't think the world has a lack of ad products today. I think we've got great ad products. I think what we need to do is we have better mapping of our consumers and have more balanced and measured ways to deliver the right message at the right time.
Great. Can you give some commentary on how some of the large advertisers are thinking about the questions they're asking around impact of Facebook ads on driving offline sales?
Yeah, there's been a number of studies that have been done here, which Max can probably speak to as well or better than I can. And I can say that for a number of our customers, we're doing a number of studies in this area. And what we're constantly finding is that there's a couple trends towards driving offline sales. One is frequency, and the second one is social recommendations and referrals. So those are the two broader themes. It's not necessarily fans, but it is frequency, and it is using some type of social referral mechanic to drive through. And there is a number of processes that we work with our large customers to drive that attribution modeling. Max, I'll put you back on if you want to speak to that in more detail. You're closer to it on a daily basis.
Sure. I was going to say that, I think one of the trends we're going to see is that there's no magic answer to that question, although we're beginning to see a lot more scale in Facebook ads. And when you start to get more scale, you start to use principles like reach and frequency, which start to make comparable your digital, your social ad strategy against your other channels. And when you start to get up to a certain level of scale, it does start to also enable a lot more modeling that you might use in other channels to be able to attribute. Because I think largely where we're focused and where I think a lot of Facebook efforts are focused are on sort of the big brand advertisers. There is a school of direct response we happen to be more focused on sort of the big brand advertising and moving the needle for big global markets.
So short answer to that, Max.
Yeah.
We can do it. It varies by vertical. It's a data analysis and database management thing and tracking thing, and tends to vary based on company. But there are a number of approaches that are being successful in this today.
Yeah, and for any brands that are on the phone that are interested in that, we are undergoing a syndicated research study as we speak on the value of fans, and we are looking very specifically and deliberately into the value and the purchase behaviors of specific brand fans. So if that is of interest to anyone participating in this event, feel free to tweet us or reach out to us afterward, and we'll be happy to share more information. So we're going to take one last question before we wrap it up. We're running out of time here. But Michael, maybe you could give us a little bit of guidance into what the measurement of ads, how that will change in 2013 and beyond.
Sure, and I think that the answer here tends to vary based on who you are. Historically, we've measured ads by clicks and by click-through rates and all various things that we've said just because somebody clicked on something was more effective. Not necessarily the case. I think as we look towards it going further, the ads measurement that we're interested in is how it evolves around CRM and managing those customer relationships and being able to understand how consumers are reacting based on varying levels of exposure to various messages. I think that that specifically in B2C is a big opportunity, and we're leading the way there today. However, still have lots of work to do. And obviously, there's a whole evolution as well from the DSP space and a lot of other space in terms of where they're going. We're most interested in understanding the reach, frequency, and impact measures as it relates to B2C marketers managing the mass market in the same way that they've traditionally managed a smaller segment of their customers or influencers.
Great, thank you, Michael. We did have a couple of other specific questions, which I think are very sort of situational to individual companies, and we'll try to respond to those offline on a one-on-one basis. But with that, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. It's been an honor to share this past 45 minutes with you, showcasing you some of the new ways we're thinking about Facebook ads. And if we can be of any help in providing resources into the work we're doing, I would encourage you to reach out to us. Additionally, we did refer quite heavily to the Syncapse Facebook Ads Calculator, and that is a free tool which you can access on the web at adplanner.syncapse.com. So I'd encourage you to check it out. It's a very helpful little tool that can help you drive the discussion forward with your overall media and marketing department, as well as your CMO or your CFO.
It's justifying how you need to think about driving your Facebook ad investment. And lastly, we've gotten a few questions about a recording of this webcast, and we will have one which we'll post to our blog, and we'll be sure to send that to everyone on who signed up. So with that, thank you, and any additional questions, just send to us or tweet them online, and we'll be in touch shortly with our archive of the video. Thanks.